So welcome everyone to this evening's talk. It's actually a two-parter, which is exciting. Tonight we're going to have two sessions starting with myself, so welcome. So I will say that these two sessions are organized by Emirates College for Advanced Education in association with ABA-UAE, and then the second session is also hosted by the ABA Journal Club, which Linda will tell you more about at the beginning of her session. All of our recorded webinars are available on the page where you registered. So if you go to that link, and on the right hand side you'll see a big long list of English and Arabic recorded webinars, which you're free to look at in your own time. So the purpose of this evening is to go through three things. Firstly, we're going to talk about successes for ABA in the UAE, so recent successes. Then we're going to move on to challenges, and then we are going to move on to some future directions. And I really look forward to having your input this evening. You may have noticed that because we are using the WebEx event platform, as you enter the event, your cameras are automatically off and you're automatically muted, but please feel free to chat, as a lot of you have been doing, so use the chat function. And if at a later point in the session, time permitting, if we want to have an oral discussion, I am able to unmute you for us to have a little chat. But for now, please go to that chat function, and that's where you can have your voice heard. So let's start with successes. So we're starting with the good stuff. Our first and a very recent success story, and I just wanted to spend 1 minute, giving a massive mabruk. We've had our first BCBA come out of our verified course sequence at Emirates College for Advanced Education here in Abu Dhabi in the UAE. So absolutely massive congratulations to Amina Maliki, who has her master's in education, and she is now our BCBA. So massive, massive, massive congratulations to her. It's absolutely fantastic news. We're so proud of her. She put in such hard work, and we're absolutely thrilled to have our first BCBA from the program. And lovely to see all those congratulations coming through in the chat. So thank you for those. The second success, and again, I'm not going to spend a huge amount of time, but I do think it's worth our while just to draw attention to the fact that behavior analysts in the UAE have been doing a really nice job of disseminating the science, both nationally and internationally. So I'm going to start, thank you so much. I'll make sure to pass on all those congratulations to Amina. They're really coming through there in the chat, which is lovely. So let's start with these international conference presentations. And again, I'm not going to have included everyone, so I'm so sorry if you are sitting there being like, I did one. And if you did, please do let me know, because I like to keep track of all of these presentations that are coming out of the UAE. These are ones that have recently been presented at international conferences and that are specifically related to the UAE. Okay, so just to give you a quick rundown, Vince Carbone presented in 2017, and he presented at the National Autism Conference, and he specifically spoke about ABA in Dubai in the UAE. Sharifia Yateem spoke at the International Conference of ABAI in 2019, and she talked about that cultural international perspective on interprofessional collaboration. And you'll see there that on the right hand side in the farmost column, there are a list of references. So when I give you these slides, these are hyperlinked. So you will be able to click on those references. You can see there, I don't know if you, maybe you can't see it as I hover over it, but they're all hyperlinked. So you will be able to click on those references and it will take you to the abstract for each of these conference presentations. And then I don't want to speak for everyone, but certainly for me, if you're interested in getting any presentation slides, I'm most happy to share mine, and I'm sure the others would be most happy to share theirs also. I'm Kelly there, number 3. I presented as part of a symposium in ABAI in 2020, talking about dissemination efforts here in the UAE. Clodagh Murray, Dr. Clodagh Murray, a former colleague here at ECAE, presented at ABAI, and she talked about the student-faculty collaborative efforts between Dr. Sarah, myself, Dr. Clodagh, and our ABA students here at ECAE. Couple more that I just want to draw your attention to. Dr. Nicholas Orland from Dubai Autism Centre, that was mentioned in the chat earlier. He presented talking about the importance and how to provide culturally sensitive feedback, again at ABAI in 2021. And at that same conference, I also presented with Dr. Lena Slim, who is really an expert in that interprofessional collaboration. She's had some wonderful publications recently, and we spoke about interprofessional collaboration, and I spoke about UAE efforts. Then I was invited to present at an Australian conference, and I talked about ABA in the Gulf more generally. And I also did a similar talk at the European Association for Behaviour Analysis. Again, I'm happy to share my slides with anyone who is interested to see those. And then the final one I'm going to mention this evening is, again, Dr. Clodagh Murray, who will be presenting at the upcoming International Conference of the ABAI, which will be in Dublin, Ireland. I hope you're coming. Let us know in the chat if you're going to be there. Dr. Sarah and I will be there, as well as some others. And Dr. Clodagh is going to present again with Dr. Lena Slim about that collaborative experiences, and specifically focusing on how to overcome barriers and giving real practical solutions. Yes, thank you, Linda. One of our graduate students and a student representative on the chapter, Adel, will be presenting on a panel in Dublin as well. So great to see our students presenting on the international level as well. So there's just some examples of international presentations. So I think behavior analysts have been doing well to disseminate our efforts here in the UAE on a global level. This is obviously also happening at a national level within UAE. And a particularly great success that I wanted to share with the almost 80 people here this evening is, here are two of our students from the ECAE ABA program, Amira and Moza, who presented this poster that you can see on the bottom right. And this excerpt is taken from ECAE's research newsletter. They both conducted their master's theses under the supervision of Dr. Farah Al-Zain, and they presented them along with other students, along with Adel, who we just mentioned, and Abdullah. They presented this at the World Congress of World Association for Psychosocial Rehabilitation and the 7th Abu Dhabi International Mental Health Conference, and they actually were awarded a prize. So it was just so fantastic to see this ABA poster receiving second prize in such a prestigious conference that was not an ABA conference. And that QR code on the top right brings you to a 5-minute recording. It was recorded and presented by Moza on the right, the picture on the right. So she presented this poster for 5 minutes, so you can actually watch their recording if you are interested. And again, I will be sharing these slides, so you don't need to be frantically screenshotting or anything. I am happy to present these, and I do recommend you check out the recording because it is award-winning. Thank you for all those congratulations. I'll make sure to pass those on. And again, congratulations to our other ABA students and Dr. Sarah for presenting another poster at this event. Now, we have been busy at other conferences as well, and I know there's many people in Dubai in particular who are presenting at local conferences. I know here, my colleague Dr. Sarah, who's with us this evening, and we've presented recently at the Abu Dhabi Teachers Conference, at the Mental Health Conference. There's another conference upcoming in December in Dubai where we hope to present as well. So I think it's really important that we share this success story, that we are doing well at disseminating, not just to the ABA communities, but also to communities beyond into other disciplines. Regina can't hear. Dr. Sarah, you might type in the chat there that it might be a good idea for her to leave the session and rejoin. Can everyone else hear me?
I can still hear you.
Perfect. Thank you, Miss Linda. And my goodness, look at all those yeses pouring in. Okay, great. Thank you so much. Please do keep that feedback coming. So that's in terms of conferences. And again, of course, that was just a very small sample. I'm sure there's plenty of you out there disseminating and showcasing your work in lots of conferences. Please do email me to let me know, because I think it is good for us to share our successes and to share our achievements, and just to draw people's attention to our efforts. The second Or tell us in the chat now too. Yes, you're quite right, Dr. Sarah. Any successes to share here tonight, please, because this is just a short snippet. So don't be shy. This is really a time where I think we can all come together and really just applaud each other on the good work that we're doing. So please, as Dr. Sarah said, please share your successes in the chat if there's something you want to share with us so that we can celebrate you. Another success I wanted to share with you tonight, and a lot of you will be aware of this, is the ABA-UAE chapter. Now, I can see here that there's a lot of noise in the background. Please do let me know. I might just plug myself in because it is quite distracting for me. So if you can just give me one moment. Linda, can you just confirm that you can still hear me?
Yes, I can still hear you.
Perfect, thank you. There is like a deep clean going on in my workplace tonight. So as I said, let's talk about the chapter. So in terms of where we're at in status of the chapter, I'm really delighted to say that, as you know, we were officially affiliated with the Association for Behaviour Analysis International all the way back in November 2020. It took us a little bit longer to become licensed at the UAE level, but this did happen. I'm just checking, at the end of February of this year. So we're fully licensed with the DAC and we're fully affiliated with the ABAI. So we are good to go, which is fantastic. And again, and I did this recently at another event, but just so you know who we are and you can kind of put faces to the names, starting with those pictures on the far left. So this is our board. Our board of directors is made up of, our chairperson is Dr. Ibrahim, who is formerly the Vice Chancellor of the college that I work in, Emirates College for Advanced Education. He is now with Khalifa University. Our Vice Chairperson is Ms. Kaula Barley, who is the Head of Initiatives at Special Olympics UAE. Third picture there is Dr. Nicholas Orland from Dubai Autism Centre. So again, he serves on our board, as well as Ms. Irene Triflist, who I'm going to refer to quite a lot this evening. And she's another member of our board. So our board consists of those 4 people, plus our executive committee. So who are the executive committee? The executive committee is made up of myself. I am the current president of ABA-UAE. The incoming president will be Ms. Sharifa Yatim of Sharifa Yatim Centre for Rehabilitation. Our secretary, who's presenting the second session this evening, is Ms. Linda Bailey, who is the Graduate Studies Assistant Director at MRC-NEC, the Mohammed bin Rashid Centre for Special Education. Our treasurer, who's there in the chat, I can see her, is Ms. Nipa Bhuptani of Applied and Behavioural Training Institute. And yeah, Nipa giving you highs from the chat. And Adil Wadain is our student representative, and Adil is also working at the Mohammed bin Rashid Centre for Special Education. And just to draw your attention to Dr. Sarah's comment, she is saying that a licensed and internationally recognized professional organization is so important for the field here in the UAE. So thank you to everyone who's involved, and I'd like to echo her assertion that this is truly a massive success for us. It's taken us a while. Thank you for your patience. We really do appreciate it, but we did get there and we're here to stay. So we look forward to serving the ABA professional community. The chapter had to recently submit an annual report to the Association for Behaviour Analysis International. And in this report, we had to basically tell them what have we been doing in the last few months. So what you see on the screen is just some of the events that we've hosted since the start of the academic year. I work in a university, so I talk about academic year. So since, I've included June. Anyway, since we became an affiliated thing, what have we been doing? So as you can see there on the screen, on the right-hand side, you can see a whole diverse range of presenters and entities that have agreed to present for us on these ACE events, which is just so fantastic. We've had speakers, presenters, both nationally and internationally, agree to come and share their expertise. And it really has been such a fantastic silver lining of COVID that we have moved our events online. I'm sure I was reminiscing with some people recently about our events that we used to host here on campus. But it really has opened us up to the whole world. And you know, that's clear by the fact that we've got people from Ireland and Vietnam attending our session this evening as well. So these are some of the events that we've been presenting over the last few months. Here are some more, and I want to pay particular attention to this one. So on March 15th of this year, and this was in line with World Behaviour Analysis Day, you can see here that this session was moderated by Miss Amina Maliki, who recently became a BCBA, and she was formerly, of course, a student at ECAE. Ms. Sharifa Yatim, the president-elect of the chapter, was the invited discussant. But the part that I really want to focus on is the fact that the panelists consisted of our current ABA students. So these were the students who just recently graduated, and they each spoke in Arabic. So this was an Arabic language event, and they each spoke about a different application of ABA. So we were looking at ABA beyond autism. What else can behavior analysts do? And each one of these students took a different application. The recording of this session is also available to you. I highly recommend you check it out if you're an Arabic speaker, because I think it's really important for us to disseminate this information to the broader community. Another massive achievement for the chapter is that the design of the website. So this is our website. Miss Linda, you might pop the link to the website in the chat just for everyone in case people have not checked it out. And here I want to stop for a moment and give an absolutely massive shout out to Adil Wadain, our student representative, who really solely created this entire website. We predominantly wanted it in Arabic, given that we are a UAE chapter. And thank you so much. Someone has just sent me a private message saying that the website is really lovely. So please feel free to give such glowing praise publicly. And yes, I agree that Adil is multi-talented. He really did an awesome job. Now, Adil created this for the chapter entirely in Arabic. There is a translation function where you can translate it to English. We obviously know, and we know this from like automatic translators, that the translation isn't always perfect. So we are looking into the possibility of creating a parallel or a bilingual website to ensure that the information is accurate in both English and in Arabic. But for now, I just want to take a moment to celebrate the success with Adil, and thank you so much again. And again, lovely praise coming through for you there in the chat. So thank you all for that. What are our plans for the chapter coming up? So what do we plan to do? Thank you, Linda, for posting that link to the chapter in the chat. So please feel free to check that out. Coming up, we will be organizing our annual business meeting. That will be later this year, and all members of the chapter will be invited to attend. Again, if you click on that link that Linda just put in the chat and you are not yet a member of ABA-UAE, please, it's free. You can register for free. You can register in English or in Arabic, whichever you're more comfortable to do so. And all members will be invited to attend our annual business meeting. However, I should say that it will only be full members that will have voting rights. We also plan, and this is in the works, that we are planning to offer and share newsletters. We plan to have at least 2 newsletters per year, up to 4 newsletters per year. Again, this will largely depend on how much news we have for everyone. We are also currently working on a position statement. So many behavior analysts in the audience will be aware of discussions that have been taking place primarily on social media about a particular center in the United States and their policies on using positive punishment. What the chapter plans to do is that we plan to write a position statement for the best practice of behavior analysts specifically in the UAE. So that is a work in progress, and we look forward to sharing that with everyone. Another plan that we have, and this came out really from the chair of our board, and it was Dr. Ibrahim's suggestion. I think it's just such a wonderful idea, and the whole board, including the executive committee, was excited about this, is that we plan to host a stakeholder forum before the end of the year where we get different entities to all sit at the same table. So we might, for example, have someone representing the Department of Health, someone from the Ministry of Education, someone from SEHA, whatever the case may be, with the board to discuss issues related to ABA. We really feel that having everyone together in the same room at the same table to discuss issues will really make things a lot clearer and will make sure that everyone is on the same page. Okay, so with that in mind, we obviously want you to have a say in what is discussed at this forum. Now, nothing has yet been planned. Please let me clarify that. But it will be useful for us right now just to hear, if you had a seat at the table, what question would you ask given the chance? And the hope is that if we get lots of questions together, that we can then, that can help us formulate what you as the behavior analysts and ABA actually want. So if you can scan that QR code, or you can, and I'm going to copy that link in for you right now for Padlet 1. If you go to this link, you may need to copy and paste it into a browser. And if you go to the bottom right-hand side, you will see a plus sign. And when you click that plus sign, you'll be able to write the question that you would ask and to who. So for example, you might want to ask SEHA about insurance coverage, for example. So I'm going to give you about 5 minutes to give you a chance to think of the questions you'd like asked at that stakeholder forum and to which entity. And if someone can just please let me know that the Padlet is working okay.
I was able to open it.
Perfect. Thank you, Linda, for letting me know. Thank you, Jocelyn. Linda, can you confirm that you can now see that Padlet on your screen?
Yes.
Thank you so much. So I'm now going to give you a few minutes to write your thoughts.
Ranjini, if you just go to the bottom right of your screen, you should see like a pink plus sign. Once you click on that plus sign, you should then be able to type into the box. Okay, thank you all so much for your questions. Obviously, I can't answer all of these right now. I am seeing a very common theme about licensure and certification, which of course I am going to talk about now shortly. Some other questions about parent training, about setting up an ABA centre, about that cultural piece. So thank you so much. I will leave this Padlet open. So feel free if later on you're like, oh, I wish I'd put this down. I'm going to keep it open so you can feel free to add questions that may come to you after a bit more thought. And it's just great. Thank you so much for all of these responses. It's going to be fantastic. So for those of you who are not able to contribute, please feel free to email me directly the questions you would like to have added if you were struggling to use Padlet to ensure that your voices are also heard. So thank you so much for participating in that. Linda, could you kindly confirm that you can now see my slides again?
Yes. Yes,
Thank you so much. I appreciate it. Another success that I'm really excited to share with you, and we will be emailing these to members of ABA-UAE. So you will all, members of ABA-UAE, you will be receiving an email in the next week with a copy of these national occupation standards. Was that these were finally endorsed. So this has been a long-term project, again, a massive success story coming out here for behavior analysis in the UAE. As you can see on the right-hand side, these were officially endorsed as of November 2021. So we officially have national occupation standards for the profession of applied behavior analyst. Now, I will say that I want to acknowledge some people before I discuss this in a little bit more detail. A big shout out to Irene, who also serves on the board of the chapter. Irene has been a massive advocate for behavior analysis in the UAE. Unfortunately, she was unable to attend this evening's session. But I just wanted to give a public acknowledgement to her and all the work that she did. She formerly worked at ECAE and she is now working with the Ministry of Education. The task force who developed the initial national occupation standards was a task force that I chaired and included Dr. Clodagh, Dr. Nicholas, Dr. Missy and Ms. Nipa Bhutani. So again, a big thank you to that task force who initially drafted the NOS. And as I said, you can see here on the screen that at the bottom of the national occupation standards, and as I said, I will be sharing these with members of the chapter. It is owned by the National Qualification Centre, formerly the NQA, now the NQC. And it includes 6 standards for behavior analysts. And you can see those standards on the screen. And as I keep saying, I will be sharing this document with members of the chapter. So if you're not a member, please be sure to sign up so that you can get a copy of these standards. I do urge you to use these standards in the way that they are supposed to be used. And I will give you the disclaimer when I share that with you. Now that we have these national occupation standards, what next? Irene, honestly, is the best person to answer this question, but from my conversations with her, the next step, and this is not just for our profession, it's for all disciplines that she is working with in terms of developing and working towards licensure. The next step is the development of what is called a qualification. And this is essentially a program template for what ABA training should look like. This is a very systematic process. We are at the beginning of this process, and I will be sure to let you know how we are proceeding through that process. But that is the next step for any profession, is after you have the standards, then you develop the qualification. I will say that we are working towards national licensure. Ms. Irene said at our recent board meeting that this could happen as early as the end of this year. However, nothing has been confirmed. And again, I will be sure to keep you all up to date as the news comes through. But the next step is the development of that qualification. I will say, if any of you do have any questions specifically about the standards, please feel free to email me. And Irene and I work very close to each other, so I can bring those questions to Irene and we can answer those for you. Moving on to the challenges. And this, of course, was something that was brought up in that Padlet. A lot of you had questions about it. A lot of these questions, unfortunately, I'm not able to answer. We're all kind of in the same boat. We're figuring this out day by day. But let me at least draw your attention to what we have done and the resources that are available to us. Again, 3 acknowledgements. Firstly, to Irene, who again is doing such massive work in terms of licensure. Another shout out to the Director of International Development. I just realized I didn't put his name, Dr. Neil Martin. I'll fix that before I send these slides out. So thank you to Dr. Neil for again being quite responsive to my queries. And thirdly, to Dr. Gordon Borland, who is the coordinator of affiliated chapters all around the world. And he also chairs the ABAI License Committee. And he's been incredibly helpful to me as I prepared for this evening's talk. So you all know, of course, what happened at the end of 2019, that the announcement was made by the BACB that as of January 1st, 2023, which is coming very soon, only US, Canada, Australia, and the UK will be able to certify BACBs. So we've talked about this in a previous webinar, but what now? Or where are we going from here? So again, let me just direct you to some resources that have been shared to me. Dr. Neil Martin of the BACB directed me to these guidelines that were designed by Gina Green of the Association for Behaviour Analysts. And this resource that she has, and there's a QR code that will take you to those guidelines. This doesn't give you the answers, but it gives you the questions. What questions should you be asking as you consider what alternative credentialing body you might be considering moving towards? So again, the questions are around, and again, this is taken directly from the guidelines with the link on the bottom to Gina Green's document. The questions are around the actual body themselves and the programs that they cover. So questions like, how long has it been in existence? Is it autonomous? Is it non-profit? Is there an executive director, etc.? So again, it's about us being fully informed as behavior analysts in the UAE when we're making such decisions. And Gina Green's document and APBA's document here really kind of focuses what we should be asking ourselves as we take these into consideration, because it is quite a big decision. Another thing that I want to share with you is a letter that was written from the ABAI Licensing Committee, and Dr. Gordon Borland kindly shared this letter with me that was written to the Virginia Board of Medicine, and he also expressly gave me permission to share this with you this evening. So this is an excerpt from a letter that was written, and it was just written recently. And again, it's about what are the factors we should be considering. So very similar to APBA's guidelines. The first is, are the criteria relevant to the area in which the licensure is provided? Number 2, are making sure that the knowledge, the competencies, the content, the experience requirements are intended to apply broadly and are not just relevant to one particular subset of population. This letter from the ABAI Licensing Committee also recommended that we again look at the supervisory experience. Is enough required that maximizes the likelihood that they have adequate training to be a behavior analyst in the UAE, in our case? Number 4, ensuring the results of the exams actually reflect the knowledge of the candidate, so making sure that the exams actually align with what should be required in terms of knowledge. Number 5, exploring whether it enforces a code of ethics. Number 6, considering if the decisions by the organization could facilitate financial gain to private parties. So that's something that we definitely need to take into consideration. And finally, number 7, addressing whether it is accredited by a national or an internationally recognized organization. So again, not necessarily giving us answers, but really focusing our efforts as we put thought into our decision making. This next resource, again, was shared to me by Dr. Gordon Borland of ABAI. Again, the QR code will bring you directly to this page. And again, I will be sharing these PowerPoint slides with you, so you will have them. So don't worry if you're not able to access it quite now. But again, this is the page within the ABAI website that's dedicated to the licensing committee. And this page is chock-a-block of resources. Dr. Gordon Borland shared it with all chapter leaders recently, and it really is a fantastic resource. On your screen is just some of the presentation slides that are shared on this page. So you get access to the entire set of presentation slides. So these ones were the most recent. I'm going to focus on the one from the bottom right. This presentation was presented by Dr. Gordon Borland and Noor Syed, and it was presented at the recent ABAI conference that was just on in May 2022. Again, you can see these power slides in their entirety once you follow the link to that page. But what I will say, I'm just going to kind of pull out the most important parts of that presentation, given the time constrictions tonight. Dr. Gordon and Noor, they go through, they look at 4 certifying organizations. So they compare and contrast BACB, IBAO, QABA, and BICC. And just to give you kind of like a snapshot of the types of things you'll see, this is a table taken directly from their slides. And again, permission was given by Gordon for me to share this evening. You can see that they've done the work for us in terms of comparing these 4 particular entities in terms of where they are, what year they established, are they profit or non-profit, who are they credentialed or certified with, their scope, the titles that you would get if you do go with those bodies, the topics that they cover, looking at the number of items in terms of their exam, the educational requirements, the total hours, the supervisor requirements, all of these things. And yes, Dr. Sarah, I agree, they definitely did the work for us. So that is all there. It is recent as of May 2022. So this is a really nice summary table that may help you decide if you do want to go to an alternative certifying body, which of these 3 that they've reviewed might be suitable for your gains. This is also from their slides where they were looking at the ramifications of what's happening since the BACB changed their global focus. We need to look and assess, how do we move forward? Okay, we can't just sit and sulk and be like, why do they do this to us? We need to be proactive and positive and look at the opportunities that have arisen as a result of this. They did suggest that ABAI must consider taking lead on supporting for licensure and certification. They also, this is Gordon Borland and Noor Syed, also said that ABA is not, their role is not to control everything. ABA will not issue credentials. That is not their role as our association, nor will they tell us what we should do. But what their role is to advise us upon request. And as you can see, I sought advice from Gordon Borland through the licensing committee, and they've been incredibly helpful and incredibly responsive. So there's massive support from them in terms of helping us to promote high quality ethical practice and really being a catalyst for the development of components of valid credentialing of behavior analysts. But ultimately, why is credentialing so important? It's so important so that we can protect the public. That's what it all comes down to. Now, I'm conscious of time, but I'm also eager to hear your thoughts on this. So I might give this about 3 minutes. If you did not ask a question about licensure in the last Padlet, please do so now. If you have a question specifically about licensure within the UAE, credentialing for you, if it's something that you're interested in doing, please, and I will again, this Padlet will be left open. So if something occurs to you after this event, please, you can still go into that Padlet. The link is in the chat, so you can come back to it later. But for now, I'll just give maybe 3 minutes just to see the types of questions coming through. Okay, so anyone who was looking at the screen there, you probably saw me nodding along as I have many of the same questions that are appearing on your screen right now. In terms of just to address that question about the national licensure, that is our goal. Our goal is that there will be federal licensure, so that once you take the licensure exam, that's it. You're a licensed behavior analyst in the UAE, not in a specific emirate or not in a specific area. So that is our goal. That is what we are working towards. So we are actively trying to work towards that goal, that there will be one federal licensure that everyone must obtain in order to work as a behavior analyst. So that is what we're working towards. All the BACB specific questions are best directed directly to the BACB. But as I said, I'm going to keep this open so that you can continue to share your thoughts. So thank you for those. I really appreciate it. Someone asked a question about, are we no longer going to apply to continue our BACB credentialing as the UK and Australia did? Unfortunately, not at this time. And the reason is because of what you see on the screen, the lack of education and training at the UAE. It is with great disappointment that I must announce, for those of you who are not aware as of yet, that the ABA verified course sequence at Emirates College for Advanced Education and ABA has been put on hold. So as of right now, there is no active verified course sequence in the United Arab Emirates. We are hopeful that the VCS at our college will be reinstated, but as of right now, and this has been in communication with ABAI, it is officially on hold, which means that we will not be taking on any students in September. Again, this is something, and this was a part of the main decision, the main reason as to why the BACB said that we would not be successful in our application, because obviously we need to be educating and qualifying behavior analysts within the country in order to warrant the continuation of the certification. So as of right now, that it's a really unfortunate news, but please know that it is something that we are working on and hoping to reinstate that VCS. To our final segment, which is future directions, and this really moves directly on from what I was just talking about with the verified course sequence. Obviously, one of our future directions, and again, I'd love to have your thoughts in the chat about future directions. Sorry, there's some private messages coming through. Some thoughts in the chat about what you see as being an important future direction for ABA in the UAE. The first is what I was just talking about. Obviously, we need it is a massive barrier now that there is no active VCS in ABA in the UAE. So this is something that we as a community need to hopefully work on in terms of ensuring that behavior analysts are able to be trained and qualified as behavior analysts within the UAE. Something else that we need to work towards, and again, please feel free to share your thoughts in the chat, is licensure. So we've spoken about licensure a few times this evening, but obviously this is something we were always working towards this. So please don't think that this was the work that we've been doing in licensure is in reaction to the BACB announcement. In fact, it was actually already running in parallel before we ever knew that the BACB about their decision to change their international focus. We always were aiming for national licensure, but obviously when the BACB made this decision, it made the national licensure a lot more important. There is talk, I don't know at what part of the process this is, but there is talk about creating a national, Deep and Linda, correct me if I'm wrong, a national certification body. Not just for ABA, but for all professions. So the plan is that there will be a national body overseeing board certification across a number of disciplines, of which one of them will be ABA. We're very much at the early stages of that, but the idea is that you will be able to, at some point, get licensure as a behavior analyst and also become board certified as a behavior analyst, all within the UAE. That's a great question from Marika. Is there a plan for a regional board, a GCC board? This is something that I have spoken to on a personal level, not representing the chapter, but with colleagues in Saudi Arabia, Kuwait, Oman, Bahrain, and Qatar. So we have been together and we've discussed the possibility of this. The major difficulty with that, because it is an excellent idea in theory, the major difficulty with that is the differences in policies, the security risks in terms of sharing sensitive data, etc. So it's not as straightforward as we might have liked it to have been. There was previously an ABA Middle East. There was a Middle Eastern chapter, but that has since disbanded because it was quite difficult to manage. So for right now, I think because especially Saudi and UAE are the only two that actually have national chapters, I think that is something that we'll definitely keep looking at, but it's not a plan that we're looking at putting together anytime soon. But thank you for that question. So I'm looking at time. I've got 5 minutes. Another future direction for us is research. As you saw, we've been really successful in terms of disseminating what's happening in ABA in the UAE. But I think, and of course, this is going to be something we're always going to say, we can always do more. More data needs to come out of the UAE. More behavior analysts need to be, everyone's doing such great work. Everyone's doing phenomenal work in their centers. They're seeing these wonderful outcomes with their clients, but no one's hearing about it. And a really great way to share that data and to share those phenomenal results with within the UAE and to share with outside of the UAE is by publishing. So by going through, getting ethics approval from an institutional review board, collecting that data, writing up as a manuscript and publishing in regional and international journals. So I think that's something that we can all support each other with. If you are if you're looking for some support in any way, please do feel free to reach out to me, and I can answer your queries. And then the final future direction, I don't think I spotted anyone asking about it on the Padlet. I might have missed it. But is one thing that we were talking about in our last board meeting for the chapter is insurance coverage for ABA-based intervention. So again, this is something, it's not going to happen anytime soon, but it's, we're starting the conversation. And that stakeholder forum that's going to take place before the end of the year is going to be a great starting place for that conversation. So we look forward to at least getting the ball rolling and hopefully being successful in that mission. So that's it. That was a very fast hour. But as I said, I will be sharing these slides with everyone. Thank you all so very much for your patience and for your continued positivity, support, encouragement. It's all so greatly appreciated. As I said, those 2 Padlets are still open. And what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to share the 2 links that you need. So in the chat right now, I'm sharing 2 links. One is for the evaluation form. It's going to get drowned out now with people's comments, but I'll keep posting. One link is for the evaluation form. As I said, please fill out that evaluation form. And the second link is for access to the CEUs. Again, please do not write the codes in the chat, and please enter your email address correctly. But that's it from me. You are all so very welcome. Thank you for your thank yous. Let me just scan through to make sure that I have addressed everyone's questions. Okay. And I will say one thing I was as I was preparing for this evening's presentation, and as we were looking, as I designed the Padlet, and I'll have to talk to the executive committee about this because we did talk about it in passing, is the possibility of us creating like an FAQ sheet, like a frequently asked question sheet, and making that FAQ sheet available on the chapter website and having it as a live document as things happen, updating our answers. So for example, FAQs about licensure, about certification, And in those FAQs, if we don't know the answer, we can at least direct you to resources that might be helpful. So that's something we're toying with. So those questions that you supplied in the Padlet will help us generate those frequently asked questions. So thank you again so much for that. So without further ado, I'm going to stop recording. So thank you again.